Welcome to Best Ball Study Hall. I am your host, Jeremiah Retzlaff. You can find me on X at Coach Retzlaff1. Hopefully you can hear me well. I have a storm going on here in North Carolina in Raleigh. We're just getting rained on hard, and you love to see it. It's very relaxing. We've had a ton of droughtish weather throughout the summer, so I'm all here for it, getting some rain. But you feel like an old person where you're like, hey, we needed this. But absolutely, we needed this. Old man yelling at the clouds. Well, those clouds are bringing some rain. So I'm very happy about it. It also helps that I don't have anywhere that I need to go. So if I had to drive somewhere, I'd be completely miserable. But without further ado, it has been very much a ton of fun going over these underdog streets, these best ball drafts with all of you. And I just wanted to just flip the cards. We're at the point where it's Labor Day weekend. The NFL season is about to start, and we want to see these games in action. I have been drafting, I have been on the clock, OTC or in a slow draft since January, short of just a couple days where the NFL draft occurred and then the contest re released on Underdog. I have been absolutely on the clock. So I think it was Saturday where my last drafts cleared and ran. And it's quite the feeling. It feels very odd right now to not be selecting and clicking and going on the clock. It's weirdly, I don't know, emotional because you really put everything you have into this. It's all you think about and all you do morning, noon, and night. Granted, there's just a different shift now that occurs that we're in the redraft, the dynasty that never ends. So it really is neat how you put this down for a little bit as we go and transition into the redrafts and your dynasty, your weekly contests. But granted, everything is live still, that it's now going to be counted, these best ball drafts. So I wanted to take today and lay my cards down. I've talked to you all about what quarterbacks I pick. We've done portfolio management on players. But I just want to rip off who I've got: quarterback, receiver, wide receiver, running back, tight end, and just give you my feedback on how I feel about my exposures and just go from there. At quarterback, I have 231 teams, by the way, post NFL draft. For the Superflex drafts, I have about 35. Those aren't listed in here. I have a couple other different contests like eliminators and marathons. But as far as many of the puppies and Pomeranians, your best ball manias, your pugs, your name a dog, right? That we've had. These are those contests post NFL draft. 37 quarterbacks in my pool, 77 running backs, 107 wide receivers, and 41 tight ends for me. So my top exposures, right at the top, Jayden Daniels. I've talked about him a lot, so it really makes sense that Jayden Daniels is up there for me, 15.6%. Now, something about my quarterback exposures, they're very flat, and I don't have anybody up in that 20+% range. I feel like I did a very good job of staying level and understanding I have a 37 different quarterback pool. It's a little bit more than the standard 32 that start. So I have some custodial builds that are mixed in there where I have a backup quarterback that I may want to impart later. Granted, I don't have to impart them. They're already put into my lineup. Whether they make the lineup or not, it's out of my control. So Jayden Daniels is my number one guy. I'm bullish on the Washington Commanders. Terry McLaurin should arrive and show on the wide receiver page for me. I'm very much high on Jayden Daniels and the Washington Commanders. I love where Jayden Daniels has been all off season at his ADP. He crested and got into the single digits, but I was clicking him well past the ninth round all throughout the offseason, pre NFL draft as well. I have big bags of Jayden Daniels. Will Levis creeps in and just pulls up to number two. He edges out Jalen Hurts. I have Will Levis at 14.3%. I'm high on the Tennessee Titans. I had some shows recently, Player Profiler News Primetime, where I spoke to Will Levis. I did a whole team breakdown, and I talked about Will Levis being a top 10 quarterback in 2024. So that was my bold prediction. You love the cost on Will Levis. So I am all about some Tennessee Titans. I see a lot of sharp gamers going out towards Will Levis as they're displaying their exposures here. So I am very thrilled to be in good company. Now, whether that happens or not, it's still out of everyone's collective control. But I really enjoy the fact that I got in on Will Levis when I did, and I felt the tide hit right when I got on the Will Levis wave as well. So it was really cool to see people in the industry get in on Will Levis because I have good entry point. Jalen Hurts is there, and if you heard my pug snore in the background, that was him. His name is Bo. He's right there behind me. Jalen Hurts, I really like the idea. I've got him at 12.6%. This offense is going to take off. It's going to be a lot more creative. And I've been high on AJ Brown. So a lot of my AJ Brown bags are tied to Jalen Hurts. You love that Konami code that Jalen Hurts provides in this 4-point passing touchdown offense. So you get some leverage with these 6-point passing, or sorry, the 6 points for the rushing touchdown off the 4 for the passing touchdown. Then there is Lamar Jackson again, Konami code goodness, 10.4%. Oddly enough, I thought I didn't have near as much Lamar Jackson exposure that has shown up here, but I'm very happy and pleasantly surprised that I have Lamar Jackson. All throughout the summer, we were trying to rip Lamar, the inside straight, Lamar, Zay Flowers, and Mark Andrews. I will say, as the summer waned on, I got lower on Zay Flowers, and I think that's right around where I might have lost out on some of my Lamar Jackson exposure. So Lamar dipped, but still he's in there at 10.4%. So I have plenty of him. And that just speaks to different waves and pockets of the season where you are. And when I say season, it's off season of best ball season, hot best ball summer, where you're trying to make these decisions. So there's pockets of it may be June where you attack a certain player, maybe July, or maybe the entirety of the whole best ball season. Caleb Williams is there at 10%. I love what he has to offer, whether it's DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze. Things are set up for Caleb Williams. The Chicago Bears have just been absolutely a disaster of a franchise when it comes to having a quarterback. So the blessings are set up for the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams will be the first quarterback in Bears history this season to throw for over 4,000 passing yards. So if I believe that, I'm going to click and draft in that manner. So I love having Caleb Williams there. I'm high on Jayden Daniels as the number one rookie, but it's not like Caleb Williams is that much far behind. After Caleb Williams, I have Kyler Murray at 10%. I'm all about Kyler Murray. He's right now QB7 on Underdog. I see Kyler Murray pushing top 3, so I'm very happy to have Kyler Murray. He has Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride tied to him. You'll love to see it. And then my next quarterback before I move on to the other positions, CJ Stroud, 10% drafted. We love the Houston offense, similar to the Caleb Williams with his triumvirate of 3 wide receivers. We've been speaking all summer to Nico, Tank Dell, and then, of course, Stephon Diggs. So we love CJ Stroud, not even to make a year 2 elite, but just to continue that elite push as an elite quarterback. And then honorable mention just under that, I'll read the names in order, but I won't get too much into exposure in the weeds of breaking down. There's Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love, Anthony Richardson, Josh Allen, and Dak Prescott. So I'll go over to my running back exposure. Marshawn Lloyd is there at 25.5%. I tried to cool the bags on him just a little bit as I had been up towards 27%, but just look at the price. And if you look at my running back exposure, this is where I go up into the 20 percentile range. I'm more than happy to do that just because contingent upside is there. ADP value is there as well. Marshawn Lloyd, you've been able to get in the double digit rounds and in that high octane Green Bay Packers offense. Sign me up. It's just a matter of health, right? And it looks like Marshawn Lloyd at the finish line into week 1 will be healthy and ready to go. You love to see it. Jalen Wright tearing up preseason, 24.7% exposure. I'm such a huge fan of Jalen Wright taking over the archetype of Raheem Mostert in this offense. If Raheem Mostert can just get out of the way, Jalen Wright will go off. And we've spoke to Devon Achane as well. Really, anybody getting out of that 3-way backfield is going to absolutely help Jalen Wright. I'm very high on Jalen Wright. Week 1, I don't expect fantasy greatness, but over the NFL season, I am betting on that with my 24.7% bags. Blake Corum, 22.5%, charging up at the end into my third place exposures for my running backs. Notice the theme here. I have 3 rookie running backs, but what you can name in common with all of them is their price and their offense, which is high octane. So I love pushing up the rostership higher on these types of players. We had all the stuff about Kyron Williams and the punt returns. I think the main sentiment with Blake Corum is that at some point of the season, he will be seriously involved in the Rams offense and he'll be a big deal and you'll want him on your best ball rosters, or you will have wished you had Blake Corum on your rosters. Chuba Hubbard, 21.2% for me. He's my 4th highest rostered running back. I've been talking all summer about Hubbard, and Brooks is just a few spots later with 19.9%. So Brooks and Hubbard, I have some of them on the same team, but then I have plenty where it's just Chuba, and in another draft where I didn't have Chuba, I have Jonathan Brooks. So I'm all about the Miami backfield and the Carolina backfield. If we reap good things from them, yours truly will be in great shape. So I'm betting on the Miami Dolphins backfield. I'm betting on the Carolina Panthers backfield. Dave Canales is going to run the piss out of the football, and I expect Carolina to thrive. I've even sprinkled, it's not near the same percentage, but some Miles Sanders, just for the fact that Chuba Hubbard will be the main guy to start the first month of the season. Somebody else is going to have to get some part of the share, right? So I like the idea of Miles Sanders even paying off as well. Profit to be had. Devon Achan is there, number 5. All summer I was talking about Achan being that guy who you really just have to be in on him or you're going to miss a ride. The ADP has been steep. It has been pricey to get Devon Achan. But to me, my contention is that Devon Achan is going to be a guy who prices people out early to where early on you're going to gain leverage from Devon Achan paying off because you weren't afraid or fearful of the injury risk. Ray Davis comes in right under Achan at 19.9%. I'm very happy with that. Ray Davis, I had him steaming up. I had pretty high exposure to him, but in this closeout, these waves of drafts in these last 2 weeks, I've been clicking on even more Ray Davis. So I'm glad I got my numbers up on him. Ray Davis looks very impressive in Buffalo. Again, a high octane offense. So the priciest player that I've talked about so far has been to all these other running backs. They're either young, they're rookies, they're in high octane offenses, or they're in offenses that will run like crazy. Take the Panthers, Brooks and Chuba Hubbard. Now, underneath, I'll just name a couple of other names because then I want to do breakdown on the receivers and tight ends. I've got Trey Benson at 19.5%, Tajay Spears, 16.9%, Jaleel McLaughlin, 14.3%. I talked about Jaleel a lot all summer. You've heard me talk about a lot of Tajay Spears all summer. So I've got some more than requisite exposure on them. And then continuing on the list, there's Kamani Vidal. I didn't ever get fearful on him, but I have what I think are cool bags at 13.9%. I'll cut it off there and I'll go over to the receiver position. Luke McCaffrey, 18.6%. It's a commander's bet that ties into Jayden Daniels. Terry McLaurin is my 3rd wide receiver, 15.6%. So I love Terry earlier in the draft. Terry McLaurin is a my guy at Player Profiler. Same with Jayden Daniels. So I'm in on the players. So I click like I'm in on them. And there is Luke McCaffrey and Terry McLaurin representing Washington. Rashi Rice at 17.3%, my number 2 highest rostered receiver. If you lived on Fear Street, you missed out on the opportunity to get so much Rashi Rice. I think a good, interesting dichotomy all summer will be how we talk about the teams that had Rashi Rice and bought when there was the biggest fear in the 90s and the hundreds in those mid-ish rounds later on. Whereas Rashee Rice, pre-NFL draft, was going at the 2-3 turn. So you had all this benefit all the way up to the 6th and the 5th round. Rashee Rice has just steamed back up to the board as the suspension fear has waned. My fourth highest receiver, A.J. Brown, you love to see it, 13.9%. Hurts is one of my top quarterbacks. There he is with A.J. Brown. I love A.J. Brown this year. I was selecting him 101, 2, 3, anywhere in the order that I could to get those numbers up, and I'm glad I did. Calvin Ridley comes in. There's another player that makes sense with my Will Levis bags. Calvin Ridley to 13.9%. So there's Ridley and there's Will Levis. A theme here, I've been able to stack my highest rostered quarterbacks, not all of them, but some of them, a good chunk, with the primary weapon that I think will thrive. Next on down is JSN, 13% drafted. JSN, the eye test can be the lie test, but I'm going off the eye test for JSN. The metrics and the numbers are awful for JSN. I am throwing that out, and JSN to me is just wide receiver Kyle Pitts, the version of Kyle Pitts where you bury it and you push forward and you want to re-roll again to get the most. So this year, JSN, if JSN doesn't hit, people will be steeply out on him. But I'm calling a re-roll for JSN, and I see JSN being a player who gets drafted in round 2 of drafts this time next year. DeAndre Hopkins is there at 13%. I cooled off on him at a certain point, but I still ended up having a high percentage of DeAndre Hopkins. There he is again. I'm buying in on Will Levis, so profit is there to be had. Then I'll read down further on some players, list them out, and then I'll go over to the tight end breakdown. There's Wan'Dale Robinson at 13%. Romeo Doubs, 13%. Malik Neighbors, 12.6%. Rome Odunze, 12.6%. So I have good stack share of players that I like to go along with their quarterbacks. Now let's finish and tidy up with our tight end position. TJ Hawkinson for me, 16.9% drafted. There were times of this NFL offseason where I was trying to put away TJ Hawkinson, get my numbers down because back when it wasn't fashionable to select TJ Hawkinson, it was almost, there was mockery out there. I was selecting TJ Hawkinson 10, 15, and 20 picks past ADP, and it was like I had to push it away and get something else off the menu, right? Pick another player in that pocket of the draft. But I still went back to throughout the offseason thinking, if I have a layered tight end room where I have an elite tight end, be it Kelsey, McBride, Dalton Kincaid, Kyle Pitts, down to even Evan Ingram, why would I not, Sam Laporta, why would I not just pair TJ Hawkinson to be able to come back mid-ish to maybe week 7 when he could come back after that week 6 bye? Sign me up. So I'm happy. And it's funny, back to other sharper drafters, I'm seeing a lot of people on the underdog streets. They have high TJ Hawkinson exposure. So there was public mockery of TJ Hawkinson, but sharp gamers were tuned in and adept to that layered play of TJ Hawkinson. Jonnu Smith down here at 15.6%. My number 2 tight end. Again, and this is in 231 drafts, post NFL draft, single quarterback. Jonnu Smith is not a player I would select in redraft, but here he is in best ball, and the late price is great. So I'm high on him. I've been trying to get all the Dolphins exposure up. Jalen Waddle is a player off the top of my head, 12% exposure. I have plenty of Achane and Jalen, as I covered before. I'm very low on Mostert. I'm out on Mostert. You got to take stands at some point. But I really love what Mike McDaniel is doing. I've even got Malik Washington numbers in these close-out drafts up to 11%. So there's Jonnu Smith there. Noah Fant, 14.3%. We believe in the Seahawks offense, and a little sneaky path to that is late Noah Fant. So late Noah Fant is great. Evan Ingram, 13.4% exposure. I'm very happy with him. I love that Titans and Jaguars game. So sign me up for some Evan Ingram. And if you believe in thresholds with tight ends, I expand the accordion out to Evan Ingram being one of those elite tight ends as far as how good I feel in having Evan Ingram as my first tight end. I'm ecstatic where I would end up going just 2 tight ends because I had Evan Ingram. So that's part of the thinking behind Evan Ingram, how I deemed him elite. When I would deem a tight end elite, I would deem it, "Hey, am I comfortable with pairing this tight end with just one other tight end to make 2 so I could expand my best ball builds outside of other positions, be it 3 quarterbacks or tacking on more attention to running back and receiver." Brock Bowers rounds out my top 5 at 12.1%. You could get Brock Bowers in the 90s and the hundreds. You can get him in round 9, in round 10. He never really shot up boards, and I think because there feels like there's this tight end saturation, people aren't really taking too much advantage of Brock Bowers. So where Brock Bowers stayed, and even similar sometimes, not to TJ Hawkinson, but a little bit, sometimes you could get 5 picks past ADP, 10 picks past ADP. This wasn't an injury concern, but I think some of that tight end saturation was a concern, and I certainly took advantage. Isaiah Likely is there at 11.7%. Isaiah Likely, I've talked about, I believe, in the 12 personnel for Baltimore, and I spoke a ton. If I believe it, I should draft like it. So there is Isaiah Likely, 11.7%. I'll read out some more names that are high on the board without going into too much detail. I've got Ben Sinnott, Trey McBride. You love Trey McBride. Luke Musgrave, Pat Fryermuth, Travis Kelsey, and then Kyle Pitts, and a little bit of some Colby Parkinson there. So I will stop presenting. And I just want to say it's been so much fun this off season in Best Ball Study Hall. I will see you throughout the season. I've got some ideas of what I want to do. But for right now, I will see you when I see you. And thank you for such a fun, great, hot best ball summer. Follow me on X at Coach Retzlaff1, and I will see you.